Pathways to Bliss, Lessons from Joseph Campbell for Unconventional Leaders. I recently, not with this, but this, I recently read through Pathways to Bliss by Joseph Campbell. And by reading, I mean dissected it. Took this poor thing apart, underlined, scored, used AI in so many incredible ways to make me infographics so I could really take in the information and start to apply it, because I realized right away that this had incredible value for unconventional leaders and incredible value overall for people. So let me start out by this. Myths are as old as anything else. They are older than religion. Myths have been around for a very long time. They're older than psychology, and they're a critical reminder of the human psyche and how we as humans work. For as long as we can kind of tell, we, since have had communication, we have used myth to pass along stories. And those stories were about how best to live, how best to survive. They always circle around life, the experience of life, and death, because those are areas we have the greatest questions. And people, humans, have a lot of anxiety and fear around that. Myth was about anchoring in stories. Brené Brown often talks about the fact that the human brain is a story-making machine. Anything that happens, it builds a story. And if it doesn't have enough details, it really doesn't care. It fills in and makes up crap because it doesn't like the gaps and it likes a story. And we have to watch for that and be so careful of it. So knowing that, as I was reading through this book, I really appreciated how that applies to leadership. What are the stories that we are sharing with our employees? What are the stories we are telling ourselves that are happening in between those ears? Are we being clear about those stories and about the myths that we believe and that we are using to govern our life? Are we communicating them? Are we connecting with other people that share those myths? Those are some of the really important things that came out of Joseph Campbell's book for me. And that's why I'm sharing it with you. One of the other things that came out of what I was reading was the fact that we as leaders need to understand that people are always telling that story. And I had 5 key learnings from Joseph Campbell that I wanted to pass along. One is when he talks about following your bliss, he was never talking about chasing pure pleasure. It sounds like it. That's today's terms for bliss. But really, he's telling people and giving them, he wants people to have permission to do whatever, for the most part, feels good. And it is not always going to be easy. It sometimes will be hard. But he's talking about finding that thing that you were put on this earth to do, or why you are here, your purpose in that. He also talks about the dragon you have to face, and it's named Thou Shalt. And he talks about how we come across this dragon, and it's covered in scales, and every scale says Thou Shalt. There is this collective notebook of how you are supposed to do life, how you are supposed to do things. And he reminds us that we are going to need to actually pursue our dreams and so forth. We're going to have to slay that dragon, covered in Thou Shalt, covered in societies. Thou shalt do this and thou shalt do that. Number 3 on the list, I think that's really important for unconventional leaders, is you are living a myth whether you choose it or not. Like breathing air, like sleeping at night is necessary. Your brain is a storytelling machine, and you are living in some type of myth, whether you recognize it or not. I would encourage you to explore and figure out what your myths are. It's very important. Number 4 is refining the call that keeps you moving forward, making sure that you understand what it is that moves you forward, that story that you're telling yourself that gets you up in the morning, that helps you lead other people, because you need to anchor in it more often, or you need to adjust it to better fit who you really are, the mountain and the hill that you are climbing. And then number 5 is every stage of life needs a different myth. The story that you built for success will not carry you into the next part. And this is true in so many levels. You do have to build a new character that you're going towards. You have to build a new story. Campbell was blunt about, he was blunt about a lot of things if you read the book, but he was blunt about this. And at some point, you set the old rock down, and because you can feel it and you know that, and it is time to seek out a new mountain and a new rock and do things differently. So as I mentioned it before, as I was reading this book, it was, to me, it was so dense with imagery, and I wanted to connect those things and rich with text, that I did go out to Gemini and ChatGPT and had it actually create me infographics for particular sections of each chapter. I have at least 12 infographics for each chapter. That's how intense some of them were. This happens to be a ChatGPT one. The one I showed you before was a Gemini. It was really, really necessary for me to take away from this book and to make my time worthwhile. If you're going to read, if you're going to put in the time, why not make sure you're getting out the return on that investment? For me, that was really important. And AI and those infographics, because I am a visual learner, really helped out immensely. Another thing I did to help myself out, and I'll share it with you, you can go on my YouTube channel and see it a little later, but I actually took an old myth and I had it rewritten into a current modern day myth about unconventional leadership and about this process of being, of thou shalt, as Joseph Campbell talked about, bumping up against those thou shalts, and how you push away from that and how you might even recognize that. And it was a lot of fun. I will definitely tell you that about it. I also want to leave you with some of this, and these are the 5 learnings about myth, story, and leadership, because remember, I told you, we've been telling myths for a very, very long time. It is in us to tell story. And that's part of what I'm doing here even. I'm passing along the story of what it was like for me to read this book and have conversations with a book club and to grow my own leadership and myself in that process. So number 1 of the 5 learnings from myth is that story is the format truth reveals. And number 2, a myth makes an invisible pattern visible. When I went through my myth where I rewrote the myth of, I use a variety of different symbolisms, and those patterns made it easier for me, but I've read it to a few other people and they're like, oh wow, I did that in my life. And I don't know that I've totally gone out and found my hill yet and invited my people to come and help me. I need to do that. So that's what he's talking about in there. It makes invisible patterns actually visible. Number 3, if you don't write your myth down, you inherit someone else's. You will be given someone else's. Remember, I told you at the beginning, literally they've proven this now with science to back up the fact, DNA-wise, we came into this world as little storytellers. We are going to tell stories about everything, and we're going to fill in the gap that we don't know. You will inherit somebody else's story if you are not careful and if you do not write your own story, particularly as you want to grow and expand. It's just so important to push up and back against those other things. Number 4, a shared story is how people actually follow you. So again, you're leading all of these people. How are you leading them? And are you sharing the story of why you're showing up to work every day, why you love what you do, why you believe in them? That story can't be told by anybody else. That story's for you to tell, and you tell it very, very well. So don't hold it in. You need to build more on story. Absolutely. And number 5, rewrite the myth and the daily choices change. I know this true for myself. When you rewrite the myths, when you push back on those thou shalt scales, when you push back on many of society, what society has told you, this is the one way, as unconventional leaders, you are doing this naturally. I'm just reminding you, you're doing this, and it's a right thing to do. I'm Joy Gina, unconventional leadership coach, international neurodiversity coach, and champion for storytellers everywhere. But clarity in your story, and make sure it's your story that you're passing on, and not someone else's that doesn't fit you and isn't a right story for you to be living through or in. Thank you so much. Bye.